Now, I have as today's panelist, Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, Professor Anthony Kila, Director, Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, CIAPS, and Jide Ologun, legal practitioner and national development advocate. So it's an all-male cast today. But Yemi Adamolekun tells me she'll be back towards the end of the month. So, she's away on another important assignment. Today, we have discussed a number of issues. The state of emergency in Rivers State, and we had Dr. Inubu Basa commenting on some of the details. And then we also had Dr. Michel Obi, commenting on Nigeria's World Cup qualification efforts. We were able to beat Rwanda 2-0 on Friday. We'll be meeting Zimbabwe on Tuesday. Now, Zimbabwe also has Kirsty Coventry as the first female to become the president of the most powerful position in the world. That's president of the IOC. We also talked about the fact that Amaju Pinnick lost election, and Dr. Obi had things to say about that. And then, we talked about sports generally with him. What was that other topic I drew his attention to, apart from Kirsty? Yeah, George Foreman, who died at the age of 76. So these are the six topics that we have looked at. Let me start with you, Professor David Aworawo.
Yeah, I would like to start from home and start from Rivers, state of emergency. So many issues arising from that declaration. I'll take them one after the other. I'll begin by saying that that declaration was a great mistake by the president. And I'll break them down. First, because there were other alternatives, less controversial, less complicated, more legal, and more rational. Just to hit the nail on the head, we know the problems that Rivers State has faced in the past couple of months. We know that 27 lawmakers who defected from the PDP to the APC were supposed to have lost their seats. But somehow, miraculously, so many miracles happen in Nigeria these days. The Supreme Court made rulings and made no reference to that. So many things happening these days, which is why some people are saying that the Supreme Court is now more political than legal. And they are right, because you can count a dozen, 2 dozen rulings that you can't just make sense of, but that is just by the way. Now, returning to Rivers, the simple way the president could have handled this matter would be to call Wike, who is his minister, and say, call these 27 lawmakers. Rivers must forge ahead. In all of these things, you talk about Wike's interest, Fubara's interest, Tinubu's interest of 2027. Nobody talked about the interest of Rivers people. So he should have just called Wike, say, call these people. The Supreme Court has ruled. They have to implement the judgment of the Supreme Court, whether you disagree with it or not. And that is that let the budget be represented and let things move on. But maybe not just Wike calling the 27 lawmakers. You could also get, with no longer Ministry of the Niger Delta Affairs, you could call his minister for special duties or whoever. Let them also call somebody like Doye Diri, who are close to Fubara, to tell him, you could lose everything if you maintain a hardline position. Cooperate and move on. If that happened, no bombing will take place. Nothing will be sabotaged. It's the easiest and smoothest way to handle this matter. It won't take 2 weeks. Stability will come to Rivers. Even from the point of view of President Tinubu's 2027 election, whatever, what he has done is even counterproductive. If he did what I have said, Rivers people will love him because they will know that he had their interests at heart. All these structures they are talking about, maybe they conduct the government election, they take the structure. The president and his people should know that these structures are overrated. In the case of Anambra, when Soludo, when that election held, where were the structures that Soludo used? People just said that was the person they wanted. Case finished. By noon, Tinubu had won the election. Even in Lagos, in the presidential election, in Ikeja, where you have Faleke, the president is as much of an Ikeja person as Bodilon. He lost the place. Where were the structures? He would have gone the other direction, which would have helped Rivers people even raise his profile and make Rivers people love him. Rather, he went this other direction. Now they are saying he has brought a Calabar man as their ruler. They are not even saying Akwa Ibom. They say he has brought a Calabar man, and they are going to show him in the next election. We hope things, if nothing changes, if the feelings are still this strong, the president will see how counterproductive this move is. That is the alternative. Then legal. If you read that section 305 they have been quoting, as side by side 188, 189, you will see that emergency law does not provide for removing governors. So President was wrong for Dariye in 2004. Former President Jonathan was right in the one he did in the North years later. So at the legal level too, of course, that's why people have risen. Even Professor Olishinka, who has not spoken in a long time, that people have been accusing him of keeping quiet, has spoken. Virtually everybody, MBA.
Professor Olishinka is over 90.
It doesn't matter.
Younger people like you should be the ones to speak.
But we are all speaking.
Leave our Baba alone. Am I
not speaking now? And am I not?
Keep speaking.
And I'm not using facts to back up what I'm saying.
Keep speaking.
Now,
don't pressurize
no. What about Jonathan? Is Jonathan also 90-something?
He's in his.
Jonathan has not spoken in 10 years. Either against commenting on anything that had to do with Buhari, and even since 2 years, almost 2 years now, that President Tinubu entered. It is so obvious. And now let us come to the details. Where on earth do you use void vote to get 2/3? Please tell me. Not even in Antigua. 2/3 to get void vote? And you recall in the House of Reps, the lawmaker from Abia, Obina. Yes.
Obia Gocha.
Yes, Obina Gocha. He spoke. He said, look, let us first begin from the beginning. Let us do a head count. So we can know whether we even found quorum to start with. They say, the speaker say he had noted it. And they just go, you know, when people want to be, they want to do fraudulent things. Those are the kind of things you see. In the Senate too, you saw the same thing. Our own Ireti Kingbe lamented that they are not even sure whether they were able to make 73, which is what you need for, 2/3, 73. And you need 240 in the House of Representatives. So the whole thing is, reflects crookedness. The way they are, voice vote to get 2/3, and then the thing has passed through. So
except that the rules of the Senate allows for voice vote.
Yeah, he does. But in the case where you have to be this specific, how do you? If we ask now, if for the records, you are a lawyer, for the records, did we get 2/3 for House of Reps and Senate? We can't answer yes or no.
There's no proof.
There's no proof.
So
the only way you get proof,
transparency and accountability.
Yeah, exactly, disappeared entirely. So there's a whole lot that was wrong with that declaration. It shouldn't have been done at all, as I stated. There's an alternative which is clearer, rational, simple, and will have been effective, even from the point of view of the president himself. And then finally, the speech. Who wrote that speech for the president? You saw that he stumbled many times when presenting the speech. And then that aspect of regulation. Regulation is an authoritative rule that has the force of law. So all these things that the Moreno Mokri are putting up and down, I just said rubbish. When they wrote that speech, the Attorney General wasn't out there. He could simply have said that no laws will be made, just as he said in the speech, but that just in case laws are required, the National Assembly will make laws in accordance with Section 11, Section 4 and 5 of the Sefini.
Anyway, Prof,
so
part of the problem we deal with on this job is that we also have to bear the burden of having to listen to illiterates, stark illiterates, imbeciles.
Well, so you can see my...
It's occupational
I'm not just speaking, I'm speaking with facts regarding from the declaration.
No, which facts? Facts have categories.
From the Constitution.
Empirical facts?
More than empirical. Now, to not corroborate even the point I'm making, let me now even... You recall that in 2016, they were blowing pipes like this in the Niger Delta when they perceived that President Buhari was not acting in their interest. Buhari sent military there. It didn't work. They were even killing military men. What happened? Buhari met them halfway. And that disappeared. Which shows that the option I'm proposing that should have been followed, reason with them, meet them halfway, all these things will disappear. It was effective before, and could have been effective now. Now, let me now move on to sports.
You have taken on
I'll just take one, just the World Cup. It was a good result, but of course that has been consolidated on for for Nigeria to be able to forge ahead. South Africa is 4 points ahead, which means that if Nigeria wins all its matches and South Africa wins its matches, even including winning South Africa, Nigeria's victories will be ineffectual. So Nigeria does not even have everything under its control, but we will continue to do well and hope that things work to our advantage. We just hope that things will just move smoothly in that direction.
Okay, let me go to the second professor. Mr. Ologun, you have to get professorship. Anyway, Professor Kila, your turn.
Well, I think the River State thing, it cannot be overstated. A lot has been said. But let's be very clear, and I want to be on the record. I think President Tinubu has erred on this matter. He has erred in politics and he has erred in law. And I think, it makes one question the capability of those around him or his own ability to listen to advice. Because there are some people around him, starting from the AGF, who is not, a little boy when it comes to law. He's an experienced and respected practitioner. And for him to make this kind of error, for this kind of thing to happen under his watch, does not do well for his record. It has been said that a lot of things could have been done differently. You can dispute their intention, but let me call out 5 intentions that were definitely unintended consequences. Number 1 is that with the proclamation of the state of emergency in River State, the president, or the presidency, as I like to say, has awoken the ordinarily sleepy opposition from their slumber. All of a sudden, they have a reason to get together, and we saw that in Abuja. Their impact is still under scrutiny analysis. The other effect is that all of a sudden, unintended consequence, all of a sudden, Nigeria are interested in the notion of quorum. And an interest that has not been satisfied, because as Professor Aworawo laid out very clearly and effectively, there is no proof that quorum was met. Now, people know the importance of quorum and when it ought to be used in constitutional matter. Unfortunately, that interest is met badly. The third consequence is all of a sudden, 1962 is on people's mind. And now students are Googling it. People are finding out what happened in 1962. And the juxtaposition that comes to mind is not a good one. Another element is that all of a sudden, President Goodluck Jonathan has been rebirthed and is appearing to be a hero, a man of common sense. Because in reality, he has a precedent that trump the action of the current president in his application of Section 305 of the Constitution. And also because he makes a statement, Professor Aworawo hinted at it, to say, I'm normally quiet. I follow the well-established tradition in which a past president does not intervene. But with the gravity of what is going on, I am forced to come out. All of a sudden, Goodluck Jonathan and some of the people watching us have maligned. He's now looking like a great statesman. He must thank President Tinubu and the presidency for that.
He has always been a great statesman. Well, he's all of a sudden.
He's all of a sudden. Well,
no, please.
You say that, wouldn't you?
Qualify.
All of a sudden, he looks that way. For even to some of us, all of a sudden, we have no choice but to consider him that.
You naysayers.
We
now believe.
We now believe. Okay, well, we came late to the table. We can go together to go and apologize to him, and the ones who made him rebut it will pay for the trip. The fifth thing that has come out all of a sudden is all of a sudden, Senator Seriake Dixon is now endeared to many people. I started following him on Twitter when I heard his articulation of this case. These are unintended consequences that should not happen. I'm going to stop to say there's a lesson to be learned about democracy. President Tinubu has erred on 3 P's of modern democracy. Contemporary democracy, those of us who study, needs to be defined. But in modern democracy, 3 things are important: purpose, process, and perception. Purpose should be shared. We must know what the president is trying to achieve, and we must try to share it. We might differ on process, but the process has to be transparent and accountable. And it must be clear in his perception. A good president in modern politics should not be suspectable of dictatorship. It should not be suspectable of following an interest that is not an interest that everybody can come to defend. You can, as some of us have criticized his economic policies, but you should not be able to point that his interest, you should not say that he has interest in making Nigeria hungry. That is a bad thing. And I say this, and I'm going to stop on this matter, that history will judge very negatively all those in the presidency that allow the president to commit this error, because for a democratic president to call in the military to take over the civilian elected people is a bad stain on the story of this presidency. And people should think that. And the fact that they don't think it gets me very worried. I criticize very firstly the president on this matter, and I send my message directly to him, albeit, and he knows, we know ourselves, that this is a patriotic call. It is not partisan, it is not anything. It is for the institution, and we must be very clear about that. So I maintain my stand on this one, on River State. President Tinubu, you have erred, Mr. President. You are wrong.
Mr. Ologun.
Thank you. And while adopting
while you are looking at it, one other issue that I raised with the doctor from River State was coalition politics.
Yes.
Because they met this week on Thursday. And whether coalition
For now,
politics,
they're weak. I didn't have time to say it. What might I say very quickly? We can assess the coalition politics. The coalition came from slumber all of a sudden. They were thrown an assist. They couldn't really score. They didn't caucus. They should have, before or after doing the press conference, before that vote was had, 48 hours, Section 305 says, they had 305 to have a position to call all their parliamentarians together and to agree. They have a leader of all their sections to say, this is how we're voting. If they had agreed and made it public, it's a constitutional matter. The Senate president is wrong when he tries to chastise somebody for saying, you have gone to speak in public. One, any legislator has a right to go public. Two, on a constitutional matter, it's not a matter of conscience. In fact, one, I think the opposition has been weak. I wish them better luck next time. And I think the president is helping them a lot on this matter. But I also think at this point, we the people should ask all our legislators to publicly tell us why and how they voted. It is not enough for them to remain anonymous. Okay. So far, we know Tambuwa, we know Dixon, we know Kingibe at the Senate. Other people, Abaribe, they tell me as well. We don't know.
Agocha in the House of Reps.
House of Reps. But those are 5 people out of how many do we have? They either return their SUVs or they tell us how they voted.
Anyway, Mr. Ologun. Yes.
Thank you very much. You know, the elders have a saying that you see a man who is carrying a load that is bent to one side. I challenge the man and he tells you, check my leg. I have issue with my leg. I think what we are discussing here is deeper than what can be seen. When recently the Supreme Court came with the decision on River State and the defected 27 members of the House of Assembly, I was amazed and I saw a lot other issues coming. Now they have come, pointing on the question, in whose interest? The old ones. National interest, personal interest, or party interest. The case of River State is peculiar. When Wike began to say that if Fubara is impeached, heaven will not fall, and I also read there may be a declaration of state of emergency, I was expecting any of those. And let me say this. The group to focus on is the National Assembly, because in that section 305, even if the president has the power to declare a state of emergency, it is subject to the ratification of the National Assembly, where we have 109 senators and 360 House of Reps members, and eventually they have ratified. What about the Governors Forum? I also read their response that they may not interfere in issues that are contentious. So we have deeper things to deal with in Nigeria. So if the president came out to make that proclamation, and he has suspended Fubara, representing the executive and the House of Assembly members, and brought in a sole administrator. I also threw an issue on the table of the opinion leaders. We call them opinion leaders in public relations and the leaders in Rivers State. When all these battles started, it was like a joke. Now we are here. Is it about the personal ambitions of the politicians? If the answer is yes, then we should expect more infractions of the Constitution. The Constitution is handled by human beings who are entrusted. And what I know is that Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says clearly that the National Assembly is empowered to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good government in Nigeria. They are still there. Let's see how it will go. And now the president has taken the issue of declaration of state of emergency further from what Obasanjo did in Ekiti State, from what Goodluck Jonathan did in 2013. That is on one side.
They're not taking it further. They're taking it backwards, but go ahead.
Further in the sense...
His own comments when these declarations were made, even the Jonathan own, that was almost entirely harmless. He didn't remove any political office holders. Go and read the comments of Tinubu when those declarations were made.
That's why I'm making reference to antecedents. You know, it's like today, I may criticize you for this. When I get there, I do this. But we need a system that will ensure compliance with the rule of law. That's my position.
Yeah.
And what we learned is that we have checks and balances. We have the three arms of government.
But the people are
and so if the National Assembly has the power to say no, even in exercising the power you have under the Constitution, you've gone beyond the boundaries. It would have been a beautiful thing.
Well, let us ask them one by one to tell us what and why they said so.
While we are asking that question, the declaration itself, we must comment on it.
Okay.
He has brought in a sole administrator into Rivers State now.
Right
and
or wrong?
I appreciate that the Rivers State people are rising up now to engage the issue. So, and that takes us to the coalition, Doctor.
Ologun, yes.
That takes us to the coalition. You see, in 2013, some parties started gravitating and they synchronized into APC. Talk of APGA, New PDP, and ACN, CPC to dislodge PDP. But there was something unique. They easily galvanized, which I do not see happening in this attempt to form a concrete opposition. Because as these politicians are coming together, the issue of who should even go, south or north, is already waiting on the table. The issue of personal ambitions of the key players are on the table already. And the issue of the fact that the one you are trying to bring out of office is likely to have become a veteran in dislodging your coming together is another issue, because a wise man once said that you don't just learn from your failures, you also learn from your successes. And these are issues. And the big question that remains unanswered is that, are we talking about national interest? So I wish them the best. And then for some, even if you are coming together as opposition, can you wait till 2031? But those are issues. I look forward to the day when it will be about good governance and leadership. And that takes us to Foreman, the great man, who was 6'4" or so at the age of 13, and he was classified as a terrorist in the neighborhood by virtue of his stature, and a man who knew what to do with the endowments of God, and a man who was resilient. I mean, Muhammad Ali dealt with him, but he didn't surrender, and he has made a good mark of his gifts and profession, and today he's gone to rest. We celebrate him. And on the performance of Nigeria against Rwanda, we say congratulations, 2-0. And Zimbabwe is waiting, and like we've been told, Zimbabwe is not a nation you overlook when it comes to the sports arena. So you must put your best feet forward. And as we proceed, it's my prayer that we record sustainable success in our aspiration as a nation. So let me rest my case in the interim, Doctor.
Okay, very quickly, let's, I've listened to you. Let's take another subject. And this is about U.S. sanctions as proposed by the Congress on Nigeria. The United States House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa has given President Donald Trump the green light to impose stringent sanctions on Nigeria in response to the widespread killing of Christians in the country. The decision followed a congressional hearing on Wednesday, during which lawmakers condemned the Nigerian government for failing to protect Christian communities from escalating violence. The committee also cited a 2024 report by the Observatory for Religious Freedom in Africa, which disclosed that Nigerians account for 90% of all Christians killed worldwide each year. The report documented that between October 2019 and September 2023, a staggering figure of 55,910 people were killed, while 21,000 others were adopted by terrorist groups operating in the region. During the hearing, committee chairman Chris Smith, who highlighted the severity of the crisis, pointed to his testimony from Bishop Wilfred Anagbe of the Diocese of Makurdi, Nigeria, as a valuable witness. In the meantime, the Nigerian government says, contrary to these claims, Christians are not targets of banditry and insurgency in the northwest and northwestern parts of the country. In a statement on Friday, the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs debunked recent reports alleging targeted killings of Christians in Nigeria. Acting spokesperson of the ministry, Kimebi Ebiemfa, described the report as part of a misleading campaign aimed at influencing foreign governments to designate the country as a country of particular concern owing to violence against Christians. Mr. Ologun, you just came from church to this program. So are you defending Christians, or you are defending Nigeria, or you are saying, you know, the subcommittee in the House of Reps of the U.S. Congress is wrong to say that Christians are being targeted in this country?
You know, absolutely, all souls belong to God, whether Christians or Muslims. And people who fear God should be worried about the wanton killings in this country. And let me say this from the report we have read, whether you talk about the bandits or the headies and things like that, they've been all out to waste lives. And Nigeria responding was on this critical whatever list in year 2020, but got removed by Biden. And I mean, something I believe Trump is not happy with. And must it take the foreign powers to point us to ugly situations in our country? I just want to advise that whether you are talking about killing Christians or whatever, that's not the way to go. You know, Jesus promised that he will defend his church. And of course, I don't know anyone who won't leave this world. It's only God that won't leave office. But the motives behind all these killings, we should go deeper into it. Right in this wonderful studio, I made reference to the case of Ruga. Ruga wasn't about grazing routes at all. I still see cows around moving in Nigeria. There are deep things. And I think by now, there should be a deep respect for human lives, whether you are talking about Southern Kaduna or wherever in the country. And now, there's a reawakening in the US saying that you need to make this nation respect lives. And I also read that the country is now saying, oh, we are taking steps, this national livestock project and everything. Is it really about livestock or whatever? And you know, some of the leaders that have been produced in this country, you know, some of them have been confronted with the hard lines they've taken. One of them missed the opportunity of being given the chance of being a federal minister. I mean, I'm talking of Nasir El-Rufai, who at a time even confessed that he went paying the Fulanese not to embark on reprisal attacks. So I don't think the way to win is to kill another person for any reason, whether it's religious or otherwise. But let me say this, God will defend his own. And of course, when you talk of martyrdom, what we believe is that it is appointed unto everyone to die. And after that, the judgment. So let's see whether we can maneuver out of this. I mean, recently a report came that you said was sponsoring terrorism in Nigeria. How far that has gone, we are still waiting. So condolences to all the lives that have been wasted for whatever intentions the wasters were out to achieve. And I pray that everyone that has the opportunity of repentance will repent, so that before you meet your maker, you're on the right side.
Well, whilst we wait for them to meet their maker and for God to protect his souls, let us deal with some diplomatic, political, and legal issues here. The position of the United States Committee might sound simplistic, might sound a bit biased, because they are under the influence of some ideological, I was going to say substance, under some influence on some ideological elements as well, under the new regime in which they're operating. But this must be said. The reason why the US or anybody can classify Nigeria in a way that does not meet Nigerians' expectation or interest is, one, in the worst scenario, maybe Nigeria is frameable. Do we appear to be a country where some people of Christian faith are being killed? Is there enough evidence to show that the number of people killed, the number of Christians killed by terrorists or by bandits happen to be more in Nigeria, regardless of their intention? Do we appear that way? The other thing is, how do we react when these incidents happen? Do we have a government that stand up to say, never again, we are deploying against this, we reject this, and we're going to fight this to the last? Or do we have a government that appears, fickle or on this kind of matter? That is another point. The third element to put is that there's something on ground. By the way, in terms of perception, I have a disclosure to make. Last year, I was invited to the EU in one of their subcommittees to look at this issue. So it's not a new issue, not just America hates us. In the West, there are concerns truly that we have this kind of situation going on. And one of the things that was picked up in that conversation is our response. So it must be said that that issue is going on. I wasn't the only one. There were people from different parts of the world for strategic security issues to analyze these kind of things. The third thing is that we run a government that has no ambassadors across the world. Ordinarily, this kind of hearing, unlike our own legislators, they're not done in hidden. They will have announced that this thing will happen by a certain time. One of the duties of our ambassadors, where they're active, is to be actively involved in things like this, to manage our perception. So I think we need to think in terms of perception, but also in terms of substance to deal with this matter. We're losing the narrative, whether the people are biased against us or not, we're losing it because we are frameable. We need to avoid that.
Professor Aworawo?
Dr. Abati, I will speak truth. The killings of terrorists have been indiscriminate. They kill both Christians.
Killing by terrorists.
Yes, they kill both Christians and Muslims, generally. But we also have targeted killings, which are specifically against Christians, churches, and Christian leaders. If we are to do statistical, if we are going to calculate, how many imams have terrorists killed in the past 5 years? Then how many reverend fathers have they killed? So it is not fable. It is true that there are targeted killings. There is no two way about it. And government needs to pay attention to that. In addition to the issue of protecting everybody, you also pay particular attention to the vulnerable, those who are targeted. There is no doubt about that. What ignited this was that Ash Wednesday abduction and killing of a reverend father, which had been a pattern. In Edo, the same thing. Exactly. In Benue, the same thing. So that is what it is. And it has to be addressed. If these things are addressed, the US people are not stupid not to know what is happening. Now the world is a global village. What is happening here is known everywhere. And so addressing the root cause actually should be the issue, and not just when statements like this are needed. You have to put up statements to defend your country. But we have to balance both, defending the country and doing what is right to protect all lives, especially those that are vulnerable, those that are targeted.
Very good. Now let's go to Turkey, where we're having another, specter of authoritarianism. Turkish authorities have placed Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu under arrest as part of an ongoing corruption investigation, triggering widespread public outrage. This action followed 4 consecutive nights of protests, marked by violent clashes between demonstrators and riot police. Many citizens are expressing concerns over the lack of justice in the country. The arrest of İmamoğlu has fueled growing frustration, with many viewing it as politically motivated. The protests highlight broader dissatisfaction with government accountability and the state of the justice system, as people take to the streets to voice their opposition to the current political environment in Turkey. Okay, I was expecting, a video there to explain it, but the real situation is that Ekrem İmamoğlu is the biggest threat to President Erdogan. Now, President Erdogan, out of fear, out of insecurity, says if you do not have a university degree, you cannot be president. And on that account, the University of Turkey has said, we are withdrawing the degree that we give to, İmamoğlu, because we detected some discrepancies in it. He has been accused of also supporting the PKK, which has been described as a terrorist organization by both Turkey and the United States. Today, his party, the CHP, the Republican People's Party of Turkey, is holding its primaries. And now he has been arrested, and they are saying he cannot come and challenge Erdogan. But, the leadership of the party has said, we are going ahead with that primary. So, many analysts see this as a case of, oppression, suppression, authoritarianism, dictatorship. Erdogan, who has been president for over 20 years, wants to stay on even when his tenure expires in 2026. He has said he would still like to run. And this man, who seems to constitute a threat because of his growing popularity, he says, no, we will not allow his degree, we will not allow the primaries to take place, we will not allow him to even be on the streets. Professor Aworawo, as in Nigeria, I don't want to say that. We haven't reached that point in Nigeria.
Turkey needs help. What is happening in Turkey is, it's unfortunate. This has been coming. It is just that this, like the apogee of, a series of activities all this while. There was that coup that time, and we saw how many people were arrested. Professors arrested, just anybody that was regarded as capable of, challenging the government was arrested and locked up. What has happened is consistent with the pattern that Erdogan has followed in all these years. It is just that this is extreme. For someone's degree to be withdrawn, to allow the president to, implement his no degree, no contest of election desire. And then the president coming to say the party should not hold his primary, all sorts of things. The people of Turkey need to rise up. Something is already happening in Istanbul and some other places. There need to be more of that. It's only the people, the political party will not be strong enough to check Erdogan at this point. Mass action by the people is what will stop Erdogan. If Turkey, the people of Turkey actually need genuine change come 2026.
I noticed that you left out the international community, Professor Aworawo. You don't seem to think the international community. I think the international community can help them. I think Europe and the rest of the world need to have the clarity of vision and the courage of voice to see what is going on and to call it out. But I also think there's a lesson here, for those who are fascinated by the concept of dictators and tyrantship. There are three intangible features that sort of set out dictators and tyrantship in the way and tyrants the way they do their things. Number one is that somehow they lack sensibility. They just do things without being aware. The other thing is that they tend to lack creativity and originality. They just copy. They're very predictable. They just copy things that have been done, and they do things without je ne sais quoi, a little touch of creativity in their doing. And then the third thing is that they tend to be obsessed by their own interest and their own preservation. I guess it's maybe this preservation, this self-interest, is what makes them appear uncreative and insensitive. Maybe that is the sequence that leads to the consequence. Because in reality, and I say this even for the FCC in Nigeria, before we go for dictatorship, if somebody has committed a crime like corruption, you don't need to arrest them, especially if they're politically exposed people. The best way, I argue, to deal with them is to leave them free and try them in court while they're free, so that the whole world will see what you're charging them for, and you don't need to hold them in bondage, because they cannot commit the crime anyway. If it's financial crime, you already know where the money is, and you just deal with that. In the case of Turkey, it appears, we need to check very well. His degree, for example, I think is overstretched. I think I'm fascinated because I'm actually interested. I would like people with no degree not to contest in Nigeria as well. I would like some form of serious academic checks to be done on people. But, we need to be sure that he has no problem with his degree. But the coincidence is too bad that whilst he's battling with the president, all of a sudden they revoke his degree for him. That is a bad thing. I think the corruption charges, whilst we disagree with what we are doing, we need to be sure that the man is not truly corrupt, but let them prove it. And I also believe, like Professor Aworawo here, that it is mass action that will help him. But I think that needs to be complemented to the international community. I am sure the president of Turkey will not expect us to be talking about this thing in Lagos today. And that is how they can follow from it.
Okay, Mr. Ologun.
Yeah, it is said that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And here
Lord
again...
Acton, right? Lord Acton.
And now this man who should leave office soon is so used to office, he does not want to step aside. And I will start from the place of institutions. I'm disappointed in the university that has allowed itself to be used, to be withdrawing one certificate or not. But should I complain if in Nigeria, towards a general election, central bank decided to change the color of the currency and to throw the nation into confusion? And the one who led that campaign is cooling down now with exposed corruption against the land. And these are lessons we should learn. If it's about serving the people, it should not be difficult for you to leave office. I mean, I make reference to the UK. You talk of Boris Johnson, you talk of David Cameron, talk of Liz Truss. These people resigned out of office to return to their private businesses.
Well, they were forced out, but go ahead.
But then,
they did leave, but they were
unlike those who will say it's do or die. And I quite agree that if the mass protest is sustained, it may be of help. At a time in Nigeria too, we were dealing with the Maradona, and eventually Maradona stepped aside. So, and like you said, Prof, they may not be happy in Turkey that we are discussing this in Nigeria, but
they don't even think about it.
I mean,
dictators tend to be
I
dull,
think the true mark of victory is the ability to leave office when you are expected to leave office. Because whether you like it or not, at the end of it, if you don't leave the office will leave you. So, and obviously, the man is populous with the people. But let's see if the government will not succeed in using state machinery that should be engaged for national development in suppressing the will of the people.
Okay. Well, I would like us to go back to this coalition matter issue, because it was one of the things we discussed with the gentleman from Rivers State. Here, the political ambition of a former vice president of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, and dispute over zoning formula who seem to be creating opposition roadblocks for the opposition political parties who continue to hold coalition talks ahead of the 2027 general election. Groups led by the 2023 Labour presidential candidate Peter Obi, former Rivers State Governor Rotimi Amechi, are said to be demanding 8 years of power in the south of the country. In addition, participants in the coalition drive, especially from the south, are reported to be hesitant about fully engaging in the discussions to avoid jeopardizing their personal ambitions and personal interests. Last Thursday, Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, and former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir Rufai, announced the formation of a coalition to work towards defeating President Bola Tinubu in 2027. Can they do it? Is it possible? The issues about zoning, about region, and personal ambition are these serious issues. Mr. Ologun, I'll come back to you.
We've said this. If it's all about national interest, why not? And then because the role of opposition is to challenge the government in office to deliver good governance to the people. And I hope also that the government in office will wake up to ensure that the primary purpose of having a government is fulfilled. But on the other side, you may not joke with moves like this, because when the APC started in 2013, it did not appear like a movement that could send the PDP out of Aso Villa. But we saw how it all happened. But I'm not keenly interested, because I've not seen that zeal to bring good governance to the people. It's all about power game, Come to the South. It's been to the South, it's been to South, it's been to the North, it's been everywhere. I've done studies on this. But where is Nigeria? Over 60 years post-political independence. So let's see how they galvanize. For some of them, I doubt if there is no major party they have not been into, and they just want to remain relevant. But then I endorse the place of opposition, which is to put the government in office on their toes to ensure that the security and the welfare of the citizens, being the primary purpose of government, is delivered on.
Okay, Professor Kila.
Well, I think
coalition politics.
Well, coalition politics. Will it work? We don't know until it works or fails. We shall know if it works in 2027.
From what we have seen.
But from what we're seeing, well, let me preambulate it this way to say that any lover of democracy, even the people in APC near the president, will want a good coalition, a good opposition presence. Because as citizen, you will want the other side to put forward ideas to correct and ginger the government to do better. That is how democracy ought to be working. Well, in this case, the people have come together. They're talking first of who's going to lead. Understandably, because contrary to what people think, politicians are moved mainly by ambition. That is one thing they share in common. What separates them is how to achieve their ambition. So it is understandable for Nigeria. I hope they're able to come together and to present to us every day a different approach to governance after they've decided among themselves. I also wish, and this is perhaps wishful thinking, I wish that among all those names that they are listing, among the ones who want to be president, somebody will come out one day to say, to prove to you that we're not just there for ourselves, I am going to say I will not run. And I could have run, maybe because I ran in the past election, but to prove to you, you naysayers, that we're just there for ourselves, let me say to you that I will not run. Somebody has done it before. Patutomi did it. He stepped down for Peter Obi. Let others learn that kind of example. So it's not something so theoretical after all.
Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to see that they are coming together. But let's see how far they go. Beyond somebody saying, I want to step down, the person you are stepping down for, what are the chances of his winning? That is the other side. So, for instance, if Atiku steps down and it will be an El-Rufai, can they win? So apart from stepping, somebody just say, "Oh, I want to be sex advisor."
Maybe Adebayo. Keep including Adebayo on this matter because Rufai has just done that part.
No.
Adebayo is the name.
I mean, hypothetically.
Which Adebayo?
The one that faced the
Okay, the SDP president. Both of you.
It's hypothetical. Now, the other side to it is this, and I want to make this point very seriously. This North-South thing is nonsense. If a Southerner is there and is not delivering, and the person who can defeat him can come from Benue, Plateau, Maiduguri, we support the person. It doesn't have to be 8 years, 8 years. It can be 8 years, 4 years, 4 years. After all, when President Obasanjo was there 8 years, Yar'Adua came, he had 2 years. The starter had 10 years. Jonathan came again and continued. So it doesn't have to, anything can happen that will upset it. It should be as fair as possible. But nobody should be, because people have been deceived already to things that, well, must be. Look for somebody who will be able to deliver, who has capacity to win the election. It doesn't have to be 8 years one side, 8 years the other side. Good governance should be the first thing. Yeah. Every other factor should follow.
Good governance should be the first thing. Well, on that note, I'd like to thank you, Professor Aworawo, Professor Kila, and Mr. Jide Ologun. Thank you very much indeed. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from my entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.